there we go. Well, that was it. That was Staging for Danger 20 years later. How was
It's
it?
it was weird. It was really bizarre, but it felt like yesterday.
Oh yeah.
And the like predictions were creepy.
Oh,
It's
I
like,
something the
whoa.
scariest one
I was
was
just
the
joking
September
around,
11th.
but
Yeah.
yeah, that
Yeah.
was weird. And it was weird seeing like stuff in there that I forgot we put in or can't
Right.
even remember that we put in.
Oh man.
So yeah, strange stuff. And it was weird like what came up as well. Like
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. There was.
um,
It's a very dated game for sure, but there are so many little nooks and crannies and uh not hints and tips, little references to so many things that you were pointing out there.
yeah, and the weird poet person running
Yeah.
around putting in like strange clues and stuff, but
Exactly.
it gets more gameplay out, I
Of
guess.
course. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and just hearing like Gabe Day's voice was interesting. And
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
you.
well, having all the because there were so many past her interactive employees that obviously played a part um, in little voices in this game.
Oh
So
yeah.
was that weird to hear those voices again, even hearing yourself 20 years later?
Yeah, yeah, totally. And then I saw that we did that at Jack Straw, which is
Right.
mainly like a music studio up in the university area,
Okay.
where we must have recorded those. I know for Stay Tuned for Danger, we just like recorded directly as a wave or
Right.
have
Right.
no fancy studio like we ended up having later on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was weird that I'm pretty sure that Lonnie had cast some of the actors, and then I guess we had some in Seattle, but it feels like the first time that we actually did have just all Seattle actors was with
Right.
Message in a Haunted Mansion, because
Okay.
I remember recording that, and but I definitely remember Bob Heath and his
Yeah.
billboards. It's just like so bizarre,
That's hilarious.
just yeah, all this strange stories and and background stuff of these people who contributed to the games
Oh
is
yeah.
interesting to think about. And I think like, where are they now?
Oh
Like the
yeah,
script
exactly.
writer, not writing any more scripts. That's what I hope.
Oh, well,
First one.
that one wasn't terrible though. There were actually a lot of good little story arcs and little
Yeah,
what's the word I'm looking for? Little narrative decisions, I guess you could say.
yeah, and there were some fun lines,
Hmm.
and I think like Lillian had some good lines, and Nancy, Nancy fought back.
Oh
She
yeah.
she wasn't a fainting lily. She came back and gave digs right back. It was
Yeah,
awesome to hear that
exactly.
actually. Nancy, true, you're a hero. I want to
Yeah.
like stick up for myself like that.
Oh yeah. No, she had a lot
But
of good lines for sure. Yeah. So looking back on it now and after having sort of watched a playthrough, were there parts that you thought really just stood out as that was really well done, really well designed, or maybe parts that were like questionable?
um let's see. So yeah, I mean, I think the overall path is questionable, right? Like, why would you do this step, right?
Right.
I felt like there wasn't a good prompt, a good cue of what to do next,
Yeah.
and so you're kind of like flailing around. So it wasn't kind of logical what the next step was,
Right.
and we were still kind of learning this out as well.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And again, also when you design by a committee, there's a lack of ownership as well, so things fall through the cracks, and then you got to
Right.
put it together, and you have all these ideas, and then once you start putting it together, you have to think like, well, how can we figure that out?
Hmm.
um, uh, and then I think I think the cell animation library, like, you know, from a technical point of view, the cell animation library worked really well. It got us to one CD.
Oh yeah, for sure.
We had, the caterpillar issues, and like weird jerkiness, but
Yeah.
it was a start. And the cell
Yeah.
animation library process like carried us through for a long time.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was kind of interesting to see, like the first iteration of that
Mm-hmm.
technology. um and then you see all the like horrible, like it's hard to see what works because you're looking at it like, oh my gosh, I can't, oh gosh, oh,
Yeah.
look at that, you got to take the screwdriver out 4 times.
I know. Yeah.
There isn't any kind of like rhyme or reason of like how
Mm.
to cut these wires, like,
Yeah. Yeah. It's just trial and
thank
error
you
for that.
patient,
Yeah.
patient game players. Hopefully in the next one we did a little bit better.
Yeah, I thought like I still look at Haunted Mansion as a really well polished game. I think the one issue I have with that is when you go to put out the fire, if you do not have the fire extinguisher in your inventory and you click on the fire, you can't back out to get the extinguisher. You
Ah,
just that's it,
it's terrible. It's
Just one of
terrible.
those small things though, but yeah, what can you do?
And it's weird, like thinking about like some of the technical constraints that we had for doing some of those things. I know
Right.
like the fire was problematic because it was in a node, right? That
Right.
those scenes where you spin around, and those were always tricky for like dependencies and overlays and art,
Mhm.
sound, and logic. So yeah, it was tough. And then it was also interesting to see in Stay Tuned for Danger just that the day and night thing didn't really pay off in terms of creating all those additional assets.
Right.
One thing it did pay off was like give this sense of like sneakiness,
Oh
um,
yeah.
which we wanted to get. I remember we got like feedback of like more sneak. It was interesting to snoop,
Mhm.
um, and to have that permission. And then there's just like ethical considerations, like Nancy, like why are you like going to people's briefcases and over their like offices? It
Yeah.
felt
Yeah.
kind of weird. And then also the universe that we created, like this is like booming New York, and
Mhm.
Nancy sees like 4 people in
Right.
this huge studio that has one set that we can see.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So again, it's I think it attests to a very forgiving game player,
Hmm.
and then also maybe a game player that's focused on a certain style of gameplay. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. I guess I'm curious. Like, this was the first one that brought you into the fold. Like,
Yeah. And again,
what was it?
when I first played it, again, I was like 5 years old. I was super young, and I just all I saw uh was this really like interesting because the only scenes that I vividly remember are the ladder coming down and then being
Mm,
on the
mm, mm,
catwalk. And so just
mm.
seeing those when I was younger, I think I was just so curious about where on earth this was taking place. I don't know what was going on, and I just sort of felt like I need to find out what's going on. And it was just such
Right.
a I think it's just that little bit of curiosity just sparked it. And I'm curious if it would have been in any of the dressing rooms or in Lillian's office or something, if that would have changed everything. If it just was in a different location that I was experiencing. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. And I'm curious though why yeah, I don't know. It's such an interesting thing that it just sort of got me hooked just from those couple small scenes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
It's curious how that works. How
mhm.
those impressions, for whatever reason, right, have
Yeah.
have such permanence or weight
Yeah.
to them.
And it might have just been the curiosity of a 5-year-old that was just like, got to figure out what that is, and you're still exploring the world. I mean, you never really stop exploring the world, but at that age, you're really getting into it and seeing things like that. Because I was at a best friend's house at that time, and I was just like, oh well, if my best friend likes it, maybe it's really cool as well. But
Mm, mm.
yeah,
Yeah, it
it
is. It
it
is.
is. It's super cool. um,
Super cool.
so from a player's point of view, having played that now for I don't know sixth time probably. It's
Wow.
yeah.
I
It
think this is my 108th actually, but I'm glad I didn't have to move them out.
No, yes, and it's so interesting because having done this with you, I felt like I really explored almost every
Mm,
single nook and cranny in the game that I
mm,
and of course you pointing things out that I never would have noticed and or never would have known because I was never there for the development series, obviously, or cycle, uh, and then even just making different connections between the devs putting themselves in the game never would have, or I may have in the future, but those things never stood out to me previously.
yeah.
Um, but even just from a gameplay experience, I think the navigation really needed a lot of polishing. It was,
Yeah.
it was something that you got used to as you sort of played it more and more. But it's
Yeah.
still, even the first time ever having booted that up after I don't know how many years of not playing it, it's still jarring to be in the hallways and to know that when I click back, it's not turning around; it's simply just stepping back. That just
Mm,
sort of
mm,
messes with my head. But
yeah.
it's a 20-year-old game. You can't really do much about that anymore. It's just what it is.
No. No.
But
No. Um, and we definitely learned, and we listened to the feedback that we got from the
right,
players and the teen advisory panel, that we listened to credits, and incrementally improved across the series.
mm,
And so it was great to get that input. And a lot of things we also knew, but there's always this constant push and pull between new content and fixing, right? And
right.
you have that in technology of like, well, do we address our technical debt, or do we make something cool, bright and shiny?
Of course, yeah.
And so we eventually got into a rhythm, and then we also had a sense from our users, from our customers, from our players, what was important. And then
Right,
there's also stuff that just bothered us internally that we ended up fixing,
right,
too.
yeah, yeah. That is true. It's all those factors that really play into how everything got made and all
Yeah.
that stuff. But yeah, little fun fact actually, Her Interactive in 2016. So the game was discontinued in 2011.
Okay.
But it was re-released in 2016 because and what I find interesting about it, it was only re-released digitally and not physically. But what I really find interesting is that it was re-released and like the original game, it wasn't a remaster. But that was after, like, way after the layoffs happened. And so I was just so curious about how they even got it to work. But I guess after doing a bit more digging, they had Kathy Reuter was still at the company, I think. So I think she might have looked into that a bit or something. But yeah,
Yeah, that's
it's one of
true.
those things. Well, unless you have any final closing thoughts you want to bestow upon us all, then yeah, I don't know. I think that might be it.
Yeah. Yeah. So in closing, I just want to say to stay beautiful.
I
Please do.
love that. That is awesome. That is so great. That's a perfect way to end this out, on a little bit of a high note there.
Always is. And whenever I have a work meeting, I always end that way with my VPs and stuff. And it works. It works. Trust me. It
Oh
works.
man, that is something I would love to see, is just a short film of someone just meeting anybody and then finishing off their conversations with "Stay beautiful."
Well,
Oh,
there you go. There's your next project.
exactly.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I've got a couple small questions once we finish recording here. But
Yeah.
that aside, thank you, Robert, so much for doing this. It was super, super fun, and I really hope we
Yeah.
get to do it again for sure.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, a lot of fun. The memories that it brought back was very strange, and it was strange how it like came. It just
Right.
started
Oh yeah.
going like, oh yeah. And then other things too was just like a blank. Like, why did we put that in, or what's
Right.
that a reference to, or I don't remember that scene at all.
Right.
So yeah,
Well, in
it's
those.
just
Oh, sorry. Go on.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just interesting. Like what is back there in the memory,
Oh yeah.
what's salient, what's what's prominent and just got swept under the
Yeah.
rug.
Well, that's where it'd be so interesting to get another team member on, like Tim or Max, because then
Yeah.
they would shed a whole other perspective from being from a different
Oh
department,
yeah.
and so
Yeah.
yeah,
And again, like I said, Laura was the main driver of this one, and
right,
then
yeah,
there's different people throughout the series that were the main driver before we brought on the permanent designer role.
hmm
So like Max and Aaron were the leads for Final Scene. So yeah,
right,
and I think also that compliment as well of just like, oh yeah, like Brian made this. No, or like I wrote this. No, you didn't. I wrote this. Don't you remember? Wait a second.
right.
So I just want to put it out there of like anyone who was on the team that if like I said I made it and I didn't, like call me out. That's fine. I'm sorry for taking your accolades.
For
but.
sure. Yeah, we'll have to see if I get any responses to that at all. Who knows? Maybe Max will give us another comment or something. Another little.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this predated Max. So.
Right. Yeah.
So Laura was our art director back then.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I wonder if she'd be interested in doing a show.
That'd be pretty cool.
Have to be one of the earlier ones though, because she wasn't there for very long, was she?
Right. So yeah, like Tier T, maybe something interesting.
I think so.
So with Message, she left like quarter or midway through,
Okay.
and then came back on for TRT. No.
Okay.
Singers Can Kill, that would actually be good too, because she was there for the
Right.
whole thing.
Right. Yeah.
And she really, defined, the whole experience.
Mhm.
She and Sherry Grainer Ray, but definitely she defined the visual experience.
Yeah, for sure.
Of the brand.
Yeah.
And of the games.
Okay. Well, there you go.
That actually may be cool is like to bring all the old timers for Singers Can Kill.
Man.
Like that's
that'd be so cool. Yeah, to have a big
this loud cacophony.
Yeah. Oh yeah, get the whole old team back together. Bring back Megan and Tim and Chris. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
Totally.
Well, that'll be a future endeavor for sure.
Sure.
Cool. Well, for those guys watching on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the series. It was great. Thank you again, Robert. Before we quit the call, I do want to ask one more question, and then you'll be free to go. But I'll ask that off air. So
okay.
Yeah, thank you again for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the series. Let us know in the comments what you guys think, and that's about it. I guess that's bye from me and bye from Robert.